Hello everybody, welcome to my channel or welcome back to my channel. This is my second crime video that I am uploading. This case that I will be covering today, I've probably seen one other YouTuber film a video on it, and I got a lot of my information from her and from other website links, which I will all be linked below. This case is going to be a little bit of a shorter case considering this happened so long ago and there's not a lot of evidence or any new evidence that has come up from all of this. I also want to mention that I do not mean any harm to the families or victims mentioned in this. Without further ado, let's dive into the case of Bobby Dunbar. Bobby Dunbar was born around 1908 in Opelousas, Louisiana to parents Percy and Leslie Dunbar. Around 1912, the family took their regular fishing trip to a nearby lake called Sway's Lake in St. Landry Parish, Louisiana. The family had been playing in the lake as any family would, and they were about to head back to their cabin for lunch when they realized that Bobby was nowhere to be found. They searched frantically, but after they couldn't find him anywhere, the parents decided to call the local authorities. It kind of sucks with this case because there's not a lot of a timeline in between this 8-month-long period, but it did take authorities 8 months long to even find anything. But during this 8-month-long search, they searched the lake. They actually threw dynamite into the lake hoping that it would make Bobby's body surface. They also even went as far as to kill alligators around that lake and dissected them to see if maybe possibly Bobby was eaten by one. Nothing ever came from any of these, and Bobby was actually wearing a straw hat when he went missing, and it is surprising to authorities and everybody else that nothing of his belongings ever showed up or turned up. It was all just gone. 4,600 citizens all came together from the community and raised roughly around $1,000 in hopes to aid the search of Bobby. Back then this was a lot of money. Like I had mentioned earlier, authorities had been searching for 8 months when they had finally come across a man named William Walters who was in the Mississippi with a boy that fit the description of Bobby. Authorities immediately arrested this man and called in Bobby's parents to come identify this little boy to see if it was their missing son. At first, Leslie was not sure if this was her missing boy. Her son Bobby had some distinguishing features such as moles on his neck and a scar on his left foot from a burn he got when he was a baby. This boy had some very similar features, and this is what furthermore made Leslie decide that this was her son. How do you not know for sure if that's your son or not? The next day when Leslie was undressing and about to bathe this little boy, she exclaimed, "Thank God it's my son," and this was enough evidence for authorities to name this kid as the missing Bobby Dunbar. Walters was still sitting in jail during this time for kidnapping, but he insisted that he was innocent and that this boy was not Bobby Dunbar but Bruce Anderson. Walters claimed he was traveling through Missouri with Bruce to go see some family and that he was Bruce's uncle and that he had adopted Bruce from Bruce's mother. He wrote the family multiple letters insisting that he was innocent, insisting that Bobby was not Bobby but Bruce, but nobody listened to him. Police then decided to bring in the mother of the child who Walter claimed was Bruce, and her name was Julie Anderson. And this was a little tricky situation considering Julie had not seen her son that she had given to Walter in over 13 months. She actually gave Bruce to Walter for 2 days just to go see some family, and they had ended up being gone for 13 months. She didn't find this as weird or anything because she knew that Bruce was with family, Walter. Because of this 13-month-long period since she has seen this boy, she struggled to identify her son, and Bruce or Bobby, he refused to recognize her as well. I mean, he had just come from a very poor lifestyle, and with the Dunbars, they had a lot more money, were very wealthy, and he had more toys, horses, so much more that he could do. So looking at this from a kid's perspective, back in the day, you can kind of understand why he did not want to admit that that was possibly his mother. Because of this, Bobby was sent back with the Dunbars, and he was greeted with a parade and just a warm welcoming with open arms. Nobody believed Julia or Walters, but during this time she maintained Walters' innocence and exclaimed that this was still her son, but nobody believed her. Citizens from Mississippi came and spoke on Walter's behalf, claiming that he was innocent and that they saw him and this boy before Bobby had even gone missing. There was no way it could have been Bobby because Bobby went missing later after they had met him. But the jury still found Walters guilty of kidnapping, and he was sentenced to life in prison. As for the boy, once again he was sent back to live with the Dunbar family, and after 2 years, Walter's attorney claimed that it was possible for him to get a retrial. But prosecutors all claimed that it was too expensive to do a retrial, and they just decided to release Walter a free man, which you can see the difference on how things worked back then. Too expensive to do a retrial, you're a free man. Walters was never seen after he was released again, and people think he died sometime in the 1930s, and just before that just continued drifting and being a loner. Julia ended up moving back down to the Mississippi, where the community welcomed her with open arms, and she was a leading part in that community. She ended up going on to be married and had 7 more kids. She always referred to Bruce as her lost son and never forgot about him or gave up hope. The boy raised as Bobby Dunbar married and later died in 1966. He also had 4 children during his time, and it was said that he would go visit the Andersons on occasion, which it seems as if he knew deep down inside that he was not Bobby Dunbar, but he just didn't want to admit it to himself. At least that's what we can draw from this. Years after Bobby's death, a relative wanted to prove that Bobby was actually Bobby. Her name was Margaret Dunbar Cutright. She started researching into Bobby, and once she started digging, she started to realize that maybe Bobby wasn't Bobby. This made Margaret really disliked in the family. She was resented a lot. It's like the whole family knew that this also was not Bobby, but they could not admit it to themselves. In the year 2004, the Dunbar family decided to submit a DNA test from a local newspaper. I'm going to read this part because it's a little confusing with all the names, but Bobby Dunbar's son, Bob Jr., decided he'd be the one to submit his DNA along with who should have been his biological cousin. Nobody expected what the results would show. The results came back and proved that they had no blood relation at all, which means that Bobby was Bruce. But what happened to Bobby? Taking it back to 1912, police did say that they found a set of footprints that led from the cabin to a nearby railroad, and that was it. That was the only evidence they found left. So where is Bobby, and what happened to him? It's kind of crazy thinking about this because I feel like the family wasted so much time focusing on Bruce being their child and trying to convince themselves that Bruce was their child, that maybe they knew all along that Bobby was dead. It's kind of hard to compare these times to real times because there wasn't a lot back then to work with, and pictures was barely a thing. I mean, it was still black and white, but just how could you not recognize that that wasn't your kid? That's kind of crazy. I don't know. I feel like the parents knew all along that their son Bobby was gone, and they just didn't want to admit it to themselves. And to have this new life be brought back in that was almost like their son, it was kind of bittersweet for them. That is it for this case. I'm sorry it was a little bit shorter, as same with my last one, but I will be coming out with more and more content, and I hope that you guys can leave me some even hateful criticism, like just give me some critiquing I can do if I need to do something better. I really enjoy putting out stuff like this. Please leave case suggestions in the comment below. Subscribe, leave a like and a comment. That would make me very, very happy. And I will see you all